I'm Jean-François Berenguer. I'm from France. I live in company which is Progelis. I'm Microsoft Regional Director and MVP on Data Center and Cloud Management. What we will talk during the 20 minutes is the Kusto. Kusto is the query language for Azure Log Analytics. Just for the beginning, we were talking about Azure Log Analytics. Azure Log Analytics is a service in Azure which collects data for many sources. For example, Azure Monitor, VM or devices. Of course, VM or devices in Azure, but also in other cloud and also on-premise. That means that you can use Azure Log Analytics to monitor data and platform on your hybrid environment. You can also connect Operation Manager, for example SCOM, to configure SCOM as a provider for Azure Log Analytics. You have many services in Azure who send data to Log Analytics, for example Application Insight, and also Azure Security Center. And also you can create some PowerShell script or runbook to collect data in environment, for example on-prem, and send this data to Log Analytics. Once the data arrive in Log Analytics, they are automatically indexed and the tables are created and also all the attributes. Then the data are available for search and some analytics. You can use, of course, that we receive the query language to explore all the data, but also use the information to create dashboards, to push in Logic Apps, or to create some response to alerts, or explore with Power BI. But I think it's better to go to the demo. Yes. So this is okay. This is hello. Okay. This is the interface we will use to design and execute the request. Now, this interface is directly available within the Azure portal. You don't need to use another portal. So you can just use the Azure Monitor, and this is a part now of Azure Monitor. For example, to create the first query, we can simply use the mouse. And here on the left, we have the schema. The schema represents all the table and all the attributes for the data. For example, if I want to execute a query about security, I can go here, select the table, for example, security event, double click, and here I can execute this query against this table. Of course, because I have many events, the query may take a long time. Now, on the left, I can add some filter on the query. For example, to filter on the specific computer. If I click Apply and Run, automatically here I have a new line with the Where clause, and the filter is here. I can also filter on every column here, or sort every column, Ask or Desk. Here I can also, with this button, change the time range. By default it's 24 hours, but I can personalize it and here create a custom time range. So it's very useful to create simple requests, but most often you really have to design and create your own, and that's what we see. Here I have a list of samples, and if you want the list, you can talk to me after the session and I will send you. The first request, very easy, is to search particular strings in the table of security event. So I use the word search here, and the string is here inside code. I can also use some wildcards, and in this query, for example, just get the top 20. So just click, and the query will execute. To go further, here with the next query, I will use the sort by. So this language is very easy to understand. Here, as such, this string in this table get only the top 20 and sort. Now, I want to select only the rows and the event for the last 7 days. For that, is it good for you? Can you see clear? No? Like that? Sorry for that. So, I will use here this operator and this term ago to simply select the data for the last 7 days. Another way to do that is to use another operator which is between. Between allows me to select a start date and the end date. Okay? So this is the time range I want to execute the request. Here I am on a security contest and I'm looking for a failed logon. Okay? That's why I'm looking for the event ID 4625. Now I will introduce more words to create the request. For example, I can aggregate the result by account and order also by account. This is very useful because I want to know what are the accounts that that will be used to try to authentify on my platform. With this request, we can see that the most common use is administrator, and then we have admin, administrator, and many other attempts to log in. Okay. I can also here take only the top 20. Here I have the result directly on the portal, but I can also present the result by a chart. For example, here I have added the word render and I use the word time chart just to represent my data with a chart. Once here I have a chart, I can pin this one on my team dashboard. So here I've created a dashboard, a specific dashboard, and I've published to my team, and all the dashboard here are the result of some requests I've created. This is the one I've used. For example, here I want to know the number of login failed for the last 2 weeks. I use already the same term, the clause where to filter, the summarize count to aggregate, and the render to create EC about chart. If I go to a simple request, for example this one, you can see that I have many columns. So if I am in a root cause analysis, it's very complicated to find the right information. So what I need to do now is to filter the result by some columns. And for that, I'll use here this term project just to select the column computer, account, and time generated. Okay. And here, the result is more simple to exploit. So, clause where to filter, project to select the column, and now I will introduce a new term which is let. Let allows me to create a parameter, to specify this parameter, and use the parameter in the last part of the request. So here I pass the start that time and the end date time. And here I use these two parameters. Plus, here, I add a calculated column which converts the time generated, which is by default on UTC time, on the local time. So it's mine local time, so it's plus 2 hours. Just waiting for the result. Yes. Okay. What will be useful now is to generate some lists. If I, for example, I need a list to use it in another application or in another request. For that, I will use 2 more terms. The first one is make list, and the other one is make set. The difference between the both is that if I run this request, I obtain here the list of all the event ID for each servers, but you can see that I have many repetitions. And if I use the make set, I will create the same list, but with distinct value. Here you can see that all the event ID for this machine. This will be useful for the next request that I need to do. For example, here, I want to know if there is recently a brute force attack on the computer, and if this computer needs some updates. So, 2 requests. Okay? I first start by the request here to collect the list of updates needed on each computer. Then I have this second request. This second request allows me to know if there is a recent brute force attack. And now I can merge the both by using a function. And this is how I can create a function with Kusto, this query language. To create a function, I use the term let. I name here the function, and here in parameters, here I write the first query. This first query uses the make set, so as a result, I get a list of all computers where an update is needed. Then I will use this, the result of this function here in the clause where to filter the result. If I execute this query, now this is the list of the 4 servers where updates are needed and where during the last 100 days there was a brute force attack. So it's very useful to do some correlation of the log. For example, here I can have many tables from different sources. I can correlate events from, for example, from your firewall, your servers on-prem, and maybe other network devices. And then you can use many functions to collect all the information and pass the result of this function on another request. Another way to do that is to use the joins. Here. It's quite like the SQL language, okay? Always here I found the table, here the filter, here the top one just to get the first line, here I select all the column I want and join the result to another request. In this example, this request is very useful if you want to know if there is some attacks with a specific account. So if we have some failed logon and if we have success logon with the same account. That means that during many days there will be attempt with, for example, here an account as Jeff, and one day there is a success logon with this account. So it's clear that we have got a problem. Okay, it matches. So that means that this account has been used for success and fail logon. Another very useful example to use the join is here, for example, to calculate the duration between login and logout for a specific user. In this case, I want to know for the user Jeff how many times he was logged on a specific server. So this is the first request, this is the second request, and here I use a calculated column. This is ordered by the duration here, and I can see that this user was logged on this computer for 1 hour and 40 minutes. Another useful request here is the use of table. Sorry. So here, the use of table, for example, is very useful to transform the result in a more presentable way. Here I create the table and use it here with the join to identify all the event ID and to explain more useful all the events. Okay, so this is the result. We've seen some typical requests and classical requests, but Kusto is a very, very powerful language, and we can also use some what we call smart analytics. We can use some machine learning to find and to identify some specific items on the request. For example, if I execute this query, this simple query here, you can see that I have many rows. Here I have 50 rows per page, and I have 200 pages. So it's very difficult to identify what is the rows that I can exploit on the next request. For that, I will use some smart analytics, and for example, I use the term auto cluster. This term will interpret the result and select the more requests. Sorry. Yeah. So I use here auto cluster, and as a result, you can see that here I have only few rows. That means that these rows are the most important rows on my result, and this indicates that I have to analyze these rows. Another term I can use is basket. Basket will show me the most common patterns on the request. Imagine that you are on a root cause analysis, and you want to know what are the most common patterns and the most repetition in the request to select what information you need to analyze. So that was some tips to create requests with Kusto, so the query language. The last part of the demo is how to create here a request and export the result to Power BI. I will execute this one. And here you can see that I have an export button. I simply click here, select export to Power BI, open the file text, and I will copy paste this text here in Power BI. So that's done. That's the result. And now I can use the results directly in Power BI. Another thing here, just select the attributes. Another thing I can do with the result of the request is to create an alert. Oops. And I will use this button here, set alert, to use the result. And by this way, I can create a notification. This is my request. And I can use it. Oops, just give the threshold. I can here define the details and use what we call an action group. An action group is the way how I can notify some people. For example, here I have an action group which can send an email, send an SMS. Now you can also do some voice call, and that's it. If you want, after that, to see where are your alerts, you go to Azure Monitor here. And here we got alerts. And this is where I can find the result of the alerts. So here I found all the alerts. So I think now it's time. Sorry, I have only 20 minutes. So I hope this will introduce you how to use this query language. It's a very, very powerful query language. You have many, many documentation about that. So if you have any question, feel free to ask now, but on site. Thank you for. Sorry?
Business card.
Yeah.